Okay, so I'm not going to do a detailed breakdown of the transmission. It's fairly straightforward. You're going to be in charge of taking all the bolts out and making sure they go back in the right place anyways, so just make a detailed, either take detailed pictures or write it down somehow, or separate them so that you know where they go back. Anyways, just some basics. Take the shifting housing off. It's just 4 bolts. Comes right off. And then the rear tail housing, there's bolts all around it. You can see them over here. And then same on the other side. There's a couple. You have to sneak through you have to sneak your tool through the housing to get to, I think, on the bottom side. But before you do that, obviously you got to get this nut off and then pull that yoke off. And then the tail housing will come off after you get some things torn apart in here. Just a couple of bolts or something, I can't remember. Anyways, fairly self-explanatory, straightforward. The bell housing, you got to get all that stuff apart first before you can take the bell housing off. There's just 2 clips, one on each side of the throwout bearing. And then to loosen up the throwout bearing shaft, something like that, go on the other side. There's a C-clip. You'll be able to loosen that up a little bit so you can get that throwout bearing out. Then there's 8 bolts on the bell housing. Let's see if you can get the light there. 8 bolts, hold that in. They come right out. And that's the basic teardown of the 51 TD transmission. And then once you start trying to pull the gears off and stuff, none of the gears and none of the shafts and forks and stuff are pressed on. So they're all either bolted on or they have a detent. And there's a spring behind the detent. So you push the detent in, and oftentimes you have to twist the part, the washer or whatever that's holding the gear on. So you push the detent, twist, and then the washer comes off, and then the detent will come out. And then you can start working on pulling the gears out. Nothing is pressed on, like I said. If you find yourself wanting to press something off with a shop press, think again, you're just going to break stuff. So, we'll get going on this teardown and rebuild. Okay, so I think I finally figured out how to stake these in. Ball bearings are made. You get that clicking feel as you're putting it into gear. It's these ball bearings passing the different clutch dogs or whatever's in there. As it's shifting into gear, it passes the ball bearings, and when you feel that releasing, that's the ball bearings passing that. Anyway, so it's kind of tricky. You have to hold it down with one as you are punching with the other, and you have to try and get the most extreme angle as possible, because you're staking sideways, not straight down. So give it a shot. It's going to take multiple hits, so do a couple of hits on this side, a couple hits on the next side, and just keep going back and forth until the ball stays in place. Okay, looks like it's getting there. One more hit on this side, and that'll be it. It's already staying in place, as you can see. Okay, it's stuck in place. Now do that 5 more times. Okay, so a lot of this is tedious work, so I'm not going to show you everything, but this is as far as I've come so far. We've got the 3/4 sliding hub right here with the, I believe that's called the clutch dog, but it could be wrong. So when you're shifting, this pushes the sliding hub towards, in this case, 4th gear. And then when you put it in 3rd gear, pushes it this way towards 3rd gear. And then this interlocks the two there. And that's how you get it to spin the main shaft in 3rd gear. So in order to put this on, I had to put all these 28 roller bearings on first, put some Vaseline around the shaft first, put the bearings on, and that helps them stick in place so you're not fighting with them the whole time. Then you put 3rd gear on, then there's this little ring that goes in, and a little detent. Okay, so let's get 2nd gear on. And this just slides right on over the bearings, just like that. Now we need to work on the detent pieces. On one side it's got little square markings. On the other side it's worn all the way around. So that side will be, I guess you can see me now, it likes to focus on my face. Where it's worn all the way around will be down. Okay. First you have to put your little detent pin in there first. See if we can get that in there. Luckily, for some reason, my pick here is kind of magnetic, so get in there. You too good for your home? I think I just about got it in there. Make sure your spring is in there first. My spring is good. Now, this guy slips over the top. Match it up with your detent ring. Push this in as it's coming down. Once you have the collar slipped all the way down, you twist it into place and the detent pops out into the gap and it's not going anywhere. That's what you want. Right there. Took me a couple tries, but I got it. So now we've got 3/4 sliding hub with the clutch dog on top and 2nd gear installed. Here we are. We've got 3/4 on. We've got 1 and the 1/2 sliding hub. And then once you got all that together, put a Circlip. It's hiding down inside there. Circlip on, and on top of that, put this washer. It's kind of a tight fit, but it follows with the grooves. At least the used one does. Don't know what a new one would look like. Okay, so it's ready to go into here. First, before we show you how to get that in there, I'm going to show you this leg gear. You can see I put ropes around both sides. What happens is it drops down. See these grooves here? There's one there, and then one on this side. It's harder to see. I'll shine a flashlight in there. There's a groove right there on the gearbox housing. And so you put the bearings, you leave the shaft out, but there's a, I don't know what you call it, there's a pipe that goes in the very middle, and then a washer on each side, and then on each side there's bearings that go all the way around. And then to top that off on both sides, there is a thrust washer. Looks copper right there on the right side, and then a plate. And the plate has a little notch in it to match with that groove on both sides. So you slide it into place and it drops a little too far down, and that's okay because bearings are right where they need to be. and this will help you get all these gears into place. And then when you're done putting the big bearings back together, and the main shaft, the first motion and the main shaft, put all that together, then you can lift this into place and put the shaft through it, and then the retaining screw. Okay, just remember which way is forward and which way is backward. I tried this before and I ended up putting it in backwards. So put it in the right way. This is backwards, this is the back. Make sure you have enough room to bend it into place. And there you go. Now we can put the first motion shaft in. Make sure to pack all your bearings in there with some Vaseline and hold it in place. There you go. Next, this plate goes on the front, and it's cupped on this side, so that goes towards fourth gear. There's a groove on this bearing that goes out, so that the circlip goes over the top and hold it in place. Okay, so you're going to have to convince it to go in because it doesn't go in easily. Stop right there. Put the circlip on. Okay, so get one side in the groove, and then just walk it around with a screwdriver or something. There. There. Perfect. Now, hit on that with a piece of wood or something. It'll seat right into place. Okay, next goes on the lock washer tab right here. This tab goes into the corresponding hole on the first motion shaft. You can see right there. And the nut. This is a used one. This is backwards threaded, so righty loosey, lefty tighty. Or should I say reverse that? Okay, so going on nicely. Now, don't want to over tighten this. Do a little bit at a time, and then check to see how much your shaft is moving up and down, side to side. That's actually looking really good right now. Maybe a little bit more. It is still moving. Okay, it's going to have a little bit of play still, but I think that's about good. When you found your desired tightness on that nut, grab a punch and the lock nut, and stake the lock nut into that nut. Lock washer into the lock nut. That's what it's called. So I've pre-installed the Circlip. You can see on this one, just to make it easier on me. I don't have to fight these studs sticking out. And it's a tight fit around these splines. So just take your time and wiggle it in place. You can stop when the circlip hits the housing. As you're putting the selector shafts back together, don't forget the selector shaft balls that go in. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So there's one in between here and here, and then 3 and one in each of those holes, and then a spring on top, and then the lid covers the whole assembly. Now these are the balls here. They're different than the ones on the sliding hubs, so make sure you get the right ones. And then once that's done, this shaft can go into place. Don't forget all your little bits and pieces need to go back in the right spots and line them up with the holes in the shafts. Here's your reverse gear selector. I also put this lever here that goes down and links with the reverse gear. Good practice is to put some sealant. I put some RTV silicone on there. I put on these bolts that hold things in place. Did the same thing. Put a little bit of sealant there and then tighten it to keep your gearbox from leaking. And the one for the leg gear on the very bottom, did the same thing. To make these bolts stay on, use 22 gauge wire. Cut off about 7 inches. Stick it through the hole about halfway. Bend it so the ends touch. Wrap it around to the right like you're tightening it down. Put one through the hole. Pull it through, the other through the hole. Make sure that wraps around there. Alright, now pull it nice and tight. Wrap it around and make it go through. The wires, you can wrap it around the wire here. Okay, So what you're trying to do is make it so if this bolt tries to back out, it's going to come up against the wire, which doesn't want to let it back out. So get it as tight as you can. Wrap it around a few times if you want. And then cut off the excess. There you go. So I got the tail housing back on. I thought that the speedometer gear down inside here, on the exploded view on the shop manual, it shows a Woodruff key on the shaft, but there was no Woodruff key when I took this apart. So I put some red Loctite on the gear after I cleaned the shaft and everything and put it back together, and it was holding in place just fine. And then I tightened down this nut here, and it pushed the sleeve right around the shaft. That sleeve right there. It pushed it, and it locked the gear into place, the speedometer gear into place. So it's moving with the shaft. It also broke the red Loctite, and that doesn't matter now because it's pinned in place by the shaft. Anyways, so reverse 3, 4, 1, 2. They slip back on and tighten down into the holes in those shift shafts, and then do the same thing, put the wire through the holes so they don't back out. Okay, bell housing's real easy. There are 8 bolts. 2 down there, 2 are there, 4 right there. Okay, and the bearing, the release bearing, slips right on. Make sure it's on the right way. If it's not going on real easy, try turning it around. The friction part is always going to face out, so this is the friction side. But if it's not going on to those lobes right there, then flip it around, and it goes right on. Now these little retaining clips are super easy. They just pull right out, straight out this way. And the curved part right there goes in back, and the straight part goes into the release bearing like so, and it just pushes into place like that. There you go. I released this shaft so it would move around. I couldn't get it all the way out, but moving it around helped to get these bolts out and then back in. So once those bolts are all back in, you can put this circlip back on to hold it in place. And there's the lever on the right side. Left-hand drive will be on this side.